Hi, welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I'm Alex Hopkins, your on air producer. All week, we are talking manufacturing, and one of the best people that we could ask for to help us with manufacturing is Tom Bugnitz. He is the CEO of Manufacturer's Edge, so he's got an extensive background in manufacturing. He's our advocate here with the Colorado Business Roundtable for manufacturing, and he brings us such great guests, and it's because these guests, while they are involved in manufacturing, what comes first is their passion, right?
And thank you. Thanks for the lead in, Alex.
Yeah.
And your words are too kind. Yeah, I think what we've been trying to do over the last couple of years is basically tell the story of manufacturing, not the how and the what and the why,
Yeah.
but who's doing it, how did they get there, what are the things beyond their product and their business that they think about when they do this. I think it was Tuesday we had April Archer
Mm-hmm.
with Sarabella fishing.
Yeah.
And April's all about things like healing, learning,
Yeah.
bringing a community of people together. And so it's way beyond making fishing rods and fly fishing. And it really is part of her life and what she believes and why she's doing it. And she happens to be making a product that helps that. And I think that's what
Yeah.
we've been looking for the last couple of years is, hey, what are those stories and what is it driving people, and what are they providing to the community beyond their product? And so yeah, it's been a treat to really get to know these people and to talk through, and I hope it's been good for you guys
Oh,
too.
it's been exciting for us. And every time you bring us somebody that it's just so passionate about what they do, and it's exciting for us to look because manufacturing sometimes, right, gets has that connotation. It's a factory and it's dirty, and we're really focused on changing that. And you do that with Manufacturer's Edge every day, but I like that we can have this element to show the other side, right? Manufacturing is in everything. Everything that you touch has probably touched a plant at some point,
At some
right?
point. Well, I think you've kind of touched on a very subtle thing that has to do with manufacturing. You know, research shows that when you mention something, we get a picture in our mind of what we think the typical thing is. If I say furniture, you're gonna picture a chair or a table or something. That's what you think.
Yeah.
When we say manufacturing, not only do we think about some of the more hardcore things and machines, but I think in general we think about men. And I don't mean to say
Yeah.
it this way, but we I think the mental model people have is men.
Yeah.
And so what we've tried to do at Manufacturer's Edge, in addition to supporting manufacturing, is really find the women who are also driving manufacturing at a lot of levels. We had April on. We're going to have another driven woman with her company on today. But part of it is the idea that we don't want to talk about women invading a man's world.
Right.
We want to talk about women who are doing fundamentally good work the way that women can do in their own style, in a man's style, in another it doesn't make any difference. It's what are they doing as entrepreneurs and as leaders in our community,
Mm-hmm.
and what are they bringing from a woman's perspective into this community. Again, going back to April, and we'll talk about Blue Moon in a minute. Going back to April, she talked about look, it's got to be smart and it's got to be beautiful.
Right.
Okay, that's what my product's got to do.
Yeah.
And you asked a question about, well, what I can't remember the phrase you used, pink it and shrink it or something
But
like that.
yeah, shrink it and pink it, and that's
Yeah,
made for women, right? That's
yeah,
a lot of the things that we look at, toolkits and
right,
big pins for her, right?
right.
That's because I need a pin that's specifically just for me.
So I think what we're seeing with a lot of women manufacturers and women produced products is don't ignore all of that. Don't
Right.
ignore the things that you would like, but make a good product that works. The
Exactly.
heck with the rest of it. And then if I want to add some color to it, that's great. If I want to make it to fit a woman's hand, that's perfect. So
Right.
so I think we're trying to tell those stories as well as how women are really having an impact on the manufacturing community. I'm happy to have two women here who one of whom is very helpful to me, Ali Recek from our office, who does a lot of work with me with our legislators and with outreach with EDCs and things. And so Ali will be jumping in here. Say hi, Ali.
Hi there, and thank you so much for inviting me to come along today.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for this topic.
Yes.
And then, and our guest today is I'm going to call her the goddess of Blue Moon goodness,
Oh.
Kelly Strong. Kelly runs Blue Moon Goodness, which we've got sitting in front of us 3 types of Blue Moon all-natural gluten-free soups and Blue Moon gluten-free granola. Kelly recently won in her category with one of our Colorado Manufacturing Awards. And I'm gonna put her on the spot real quickly before we get into a little bit of background. But Kelly, when she accepted the award, she said, "It's nice to be up here with a bunch of real manufacturers." Okay, and Kelly walked off the stage where my only job is to smile and take a picture with the winners, and I said through my teeth, "Don't ever say you're not a real manufacturer."
Yeah.
Okay, and so getting back to what I said before,
Yeah.
Kelly, and not again, not to embarrass you or put you on the spot,
No.
but I think what you projected was something a lot of small manufacturers and a lot of women manufacturers think. I'm not a real manufacturer because we got that picture.
I diminished myself.
I wouldn't say
in a
that.
way,
I
a little
think
bit.
no, not really, not really. I think you reflected an attitude that a lot of people have about if you do that stuff, you're a manufacturer. I'm making things that aren't in that big metal whatever category.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, before I came up to the awards dinner, before I knew I won, I looked up the definition of manufacturing, actually, and it's making something from raw materials.
Yeah.
And, but like I said, I don't know when I went from just cooking in my kitchen to, my ingredients being raw materials
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
that.
Well, but if you look at the processes you make, you're changing the form or the function of something.
Most
You're-
definitely.
You're creating a single thing out of a bunch of parts. You're packaging it. You're selling it. And that, to me, is somebody who's manufacturing one.
I'm excited, actually, to be considered a manufacturer, and I think that a lot of it has to do with the scale, and for us that
Right.
we're a manufacturer. Now we want to be a bigger
manufacturer. Okay. So Kelly, let's talk about your enterprise here, Blue Moon Goodness. You said I'm not any longer making things in my kitchen, but what was the kind of the spark or the drive, or what is it you're trying to do with a company that's gluten-free, all natural? I mean, you're checking all the boxes to be in Colorado.
Sourced locally.
But why?
I'll tell you, not to be flippant, really grew organically. I was making things that were like my mother's recipes. That granola, for instance, is based on her recipe, and I found that people were like asking me for it. I was, trading for my yoga practice, with my instructor. She's like, "Could you bring me a 2-pound bag that'll carry you for a few weeks?" And
I'd say that's a great exchange.
Yeah.
and it was actually, it still is.
Yeah.
And I was flattered, and then that just grew, and then I'm like, oh, well, let me explore this, possibilities. And we all have circumstances in our life that bring us to certain points where you have. Wow, you're at a crossroads, and I was at a crossroads, and I'd been in the high-tech business, and I was in sales, and I can cook, and so I've married my 2 strongest skills, selling and cooking. And
Awesome.
Yeah.
Please, Alex.
Oh, I was just going to say that it's that passion that we talk about, right? That's the one thing that I love to see when
Yeah.
people come on the show, is talking about you find your passion and then you can make something out of
Right, I
that.
got to marry those, those
Yeah.
2 things, and it was really nice. Has been really a nice experience. And also, everybody eats. It's not like you're making, in the high-tech world, it was, how excited were you really about your database?
Yeah.
So it's really nice. Everybody eats, and some people
Yeah.
are more passionate about it or care about it more than others.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you all have to eat. So I have a captive audience in some ways, and it's also my way of showing, love and caring about people. It's really, great opportunity.
Well, I
to do
think
that.
something you've touched on that we talked about a number of times is that you're not a manufacturer who happens to be in the food business. Your thing was the food and the cooking, and that was something that you knew how to do, and you became a manufacturer in order to produce something for a community.
That's right. That's
Okay.
exactly right. Because usually, I think in manufacturing, you think, oh, people need nuts and bolts, and
Right.
but you didn't make that at home.
Right, exactly. Some people I know do.
Well,
actually.
yeah. As I said it, I thought
Yeah.
well, maybe there's a better example, but you get it.
But we've talked internally to our company, and I've talked on a number of panels where I said, if you want to find imaginative, energetic people, you go to what you may call niche industries, but what I call is some special things that are like outdoor products, food, the brewing industry. That's where you find people who are committed to their product and what they're doing for that community of people, and again, are manufacturers in order to get that accomplished. When I was, like 8, I said when I get to be 65, I want to run a nonprofit that helps manufacturers. I know I had that vision.
Of course you did.
I don't think you had a vision of you were going to be a goodness goddess
No.
and making foods.
No, I think that happened. Like you have a pot on your stove at home, right? And you get another pot, and then you realize that the next pot's not going to fit on your stove.
Right.
So, that's how. I'm okay. What next? Okay, I'll keep on this path. Something put me on the path, and it just kept snowballing, and it was really nice. And the soups actually were totally the soups and they're 2-year shelf stable and they're hot packed, which is an old-fashioned way
Right.
of preserving food. I didn't start out making these soups in my kitchen thinking I was going to do that. I started out in a commercial kitchen where someone was hot packing salsa for grocery stores next to me, and I was making these soups for restaurants. And I just said, hey, could we take a look at that? And with food, it's a scientific, the science of food. The pH levels have to be a certain level, and the temperature has to be. And so it was easy to test it. And with that Moroccan vegetable soup, what we realized is that wow, this is like doable.
Something else,
And
yeah.
it just was a light bulb moment, really.
Well, and we hear that story a lot, Alex, which is again, you didn't plan that.
No,
Okay, you
it's
followed
the
your
best.
nose, no pun intended, and you happened to be next to somebody, and you started thinking about it, but you were open to the idea.
Oh yeah.
You didn't have a preconceived notion. No, I'm going to keep making pots of soup for restaurants. It was like, whoa, wait a minute, here's an idea.
It was a better, more efficient way to deliver a product that everybody needs. I could, when you make it shelf stable, then it's a great pantry item, and you can have it there for a long time. If you make a pot of soup at home, or a pot of soup that I would take to a restaurant and sell to them, it was gone in
Right.
6 days or whatever. That was no good anymore. But this is, a long time, and I think it looks. I like the challenge of making it look pretty in the jar and the labels. That was a really fun part for me too. So.
Oh, that's an interesting idea. I would have never thought of that. So there's an artisticness to what's it look like through the glass jar.
Definitely. What do you think it looks pretty?
I think
It
it's
does.
great. Well,
I really enjoy the packaging, and I love the
The logo.
the font.
The logo.
Yeah, the
and
logo looks great.
Uh-huh.
And the branding is so fantastic. I'm interested to hear about the bee in the hexagon.
I always wait to see if anybody will notice it. I try to keep it subtle because, especially for the soups, it doesn't seem relevant.
right.
But the granola and the
It's a honeycomb.
very good. The granola is actually made with the only sweetener in it is honey. There's no sugar, and I had bees. And in order to get
Wow.
agricultural zoning, you have to make a product from
okay.
what you produce. And I needed my ag zoning for my property, and I petitioned the county, and they said, well, wait a minute, no one has ever really asked. I said, well, I'm making granola with it, and I'm selling it. And they said, well, we can't really deny it to you then. So that became a really
Fantastic.
important part of my story,
Yeah.
actually, the bees. And unfortunately, I'll tell the
Please.
sad part
Let's
of
hear
that
it.
is that, bears really do like honey.
Oh, no.
That's not a myth.
No. So
Do
Did you end
they,
up
and
with-
when they're in the woods, do they actually? No. I'm sorry.
So So let's hear that story because I mean,
I looked out my kitchen window at my bee yard with 5 strands of electric fencing around it, and a bear had just gotten lucky and got in there, and he had the whole thing on his head, and bees were everywhere.
Oh, Pooh
So-
Bear,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So,
the honey jar on his head.
oh, literally. Yeah.
Oh,
no.
no.
So I get the bee part. Tell me about Blue Moon. Now we had Cerebella Fishing, which is
Yeah.
2
Oh,
dogs, Sarah and
actually-
Bella. So you have 2 dogs, Blue and Moon.
No, actually, I hived my first bees on a blue moon.
Wow.
And
so it does all tie in
And
together.
to get your agricultural zoning, you had to have an official business name.
name.
So it was a Blue Moon and Blue Moon Bees, and then when the food came, we made it Blue Moon Goodness.
Okay,
Once
let's put
on a blue moon.
let's put Allie on
Right.
the spot. What's a
Fantastic.
Blue Moon?
A blue moon. Oh no, gosh.
Alex?
I'm gonna help
Two
you.
full moons in the same month, right?
Which is the Blue Moon?
the second?
Okay, very
All
good.
Thanks,
right.
Alex.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Got this.
I worship the full moon. I should know what a blue moon
There you
is.
go. There you
That's
go.
right.
I know it's a good beer too.
That's true. That's one of actually the drawbacks. But the Blue Moon does create a lot of familiarity, people.
Right. I think people are
and provokes conversation.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
so you're in Colorado Springs, Kelly.
Correct.
And are you sharing kitchens now? What's your production
So
like?
we've taken over an old sausage factory in Colorado Springs about 2 years ago. We had more of a retail space. It was a shared kitchen, commissary type kitchen, and 3 of us were growing, and we didn't really need the retail aspect of it. So we took over an old sausage factory, and like I said, we burned some sage and we started making vegan soup. So
Yes.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
boy, that's the yin and the yang of
Cleansing.
life. Right?
yes, definitely. So
Yeah.
I feel like I'm doing good on that level too.
There you-
I'm making some reparations.
So,
Exactly.
How big is the business now, Kelly?
We're in about 300 stores and we're growing. And we just had news last week. I can't really announce it publicly, but we're going to be going into another big grocery chain in this region and a little bit beyond, and that's really exciting.
That is really exciting.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So
and what's your thinking on how you're going to expand not just the business but products? You've got a strategy here that has to do with gluten-free. And let me divert there for a second. Why did you go to gluten-free stuff?
you know what? The granola, I had been making that granola for a long time, and when I changed to gluten-free oats and to a gluten-free product, my sales increased. And it wasn't really, it just was, people care about it, and there's gluten in things that you don't even realize, like,
Blue Moon beer.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe.
There is gluten
Is
in
there?
beer.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
gluten.
you-
Right,
yeah.
exactly. But there's gluten even in like shelf-stable products that it's a sub-ingredient of a sub-ingredient, and people who are sensitive makes a difference. So,
It really does.
and it wasn't
And
really hard to do it. And now actually we're sourcing all of our ingredients, as many of our ingredients as we can from local purveyors, local farmers, and we're able to buy a lot of organic stuff that way also. So our ingredients are now all organic as well.
That's a difficult thing to keep up with.
Yes.
To make sure your farmers are doing their job, and
It is.
what kind of issues does that give you when forget soup for a second, when you're trying to produce something that's organic or all natural, like a lot of people around here are doing?
Well, you want to find reliable sources, and and of course costing is huge, and because a lot of times organic is more expensive, although it's becoming the gap is narrowing a little bit. There's more demand, so more is grown. So we're able to grow. There's an organization in southern Colorado called the Arkansas Valley Growers Association. We source from them. We're able to source a little bit. We're just starting to work with another company that has some organic and non-organic, but I don't know if you're familiar with a company called Food Maven. They're a Colorado Springs startup.
Yeah.
So we've just started researching and working with them, trying to work with them a little bit on sourcing. So that would, that there are challenges to find, if you go outside the mainstream, if you don't go to the big like fresh market or whatever, the big distributors. So that's just an ever evolving.
I can't even imagine. I can't
Yeah.
even. Are you expanding. You've got 3 here. Is that the? Are you
Oh, I'm
expanding beyond
so
this?
glad you asked because, this is one segment of manufacturing that the research and development is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And people want to help,
Yeah, there you go. Well,
So we have 2 new soups for sure, just about ready. The science part, like I said, honing in on that, making sure that balance, because you stabilize food with like salt or sugar or things like that. So you have to work on the recipes to get that balance where flavor is not outdone by just the mere fact of trying to stabilize it.
okay. I have 7 brothers and sisters, and my mother at one point had 6 kids under 6, if you can imagine.
That sounds miserable. I'm not going to lie. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't really want to try to imagine.
No, do
Yeah.
not. And her particular talent was baking and cooking. And at a very young age, you realize this was about chemistry. And she was in the Pillsbury Bake Off, if you know that thing, a number of times. There was like a contest in St. Louis where there would be 150, 200 women baking cakes to show what.
Wow.
This was in the
Yeah.
early days of gas, and twice she won it on blind tasting out of, so it's not like.
Wow, that's
So
awesome.
she was good. I mean,
Yeah.
but she would be inventing these things, and she would be just the simple things, vinegar and baking soda that we all love to play with, but how various parts of the recipe interacted at various times. And so whenever I go into food stores, and what you're saying right now is that's not just cook some up and mix it. There's a lot of science that actually will have to go into a company like yours that's growing and expanding.
Right.
And scaling. I mean, just so that your canning is worthwhile and your production.
Right, the scaling is actually really important because things react
Change the
differently.
taste.
When you make 80 gallons or 150 gallons, and that changes.
Really?
Oh yeah.
In what way?
And I like to. Well, the spices, their potency is
Yeah.
different when you use when you put it in. You might think, oh, for 1 gallon I would put in a teaspoon of cumin. For 20, then I should put 20 teaspoons. But it doesn't really work that way because the flavor just
Permeates.
permeates and disperses differently. I can't even.
Really?
Yeah. So we always try and actually we try to ease into the spices every time. It's not. That's the part I'm always there for. Actually, I can leave after
Okay.
that's been dialed in.
And then I would imagine the freshness of the spices as well will also make a difference.
That's exactly
So
right.
it's hard to keep the formula straight.
That's right. And actually, the pH levels of your tomatoes and your peppers could be
Yeah.
different from crop to crop.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you definitely have to ease into it. But it's interesting what you said about your mother because some of that, and I'm sure it was with her, becomes intuitive.
Oh, it was unbelievable. Oh, it was unbelievable to watch her do these things.
Right.
She would do something and it wouldn't be quite right, and she would know how to adjust. And
Right.
2 or 3 times down the road, she had it perfect. One of her prize-winning things was for Lowry's. She won a Lowry's contest. Lowry's Luscious Luau Burger. So say that. So I think, Alex, what you're sensing again is we think about manufacturing, but look what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Quality control of organic food, the science of making something so it sits on the shelf well.
Yeah.
The look and feel through the glass. I mean, this is not just, let's go make stuff. This is thinking about an entire range of issues that I don't think many people really think about. So I'd like to talk more about that when we come back.
Absolutely. We will be right back in a few minutes. Be sure to check out this podcast and more at cobrt.com/radio-podcast, and be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube page. Welcome back to Connect and Collaborate. Once again, I'm Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and we are talking manufacturing. But one of the interesting things that we're talking about today is something that you wouldn't necessarily pair up with manufacturing, and that's we are talking about Blue Moon Goodness, which is a gluten-free, all-natural, vegan soup food place. Yes, food.
Food, yes.
Granola?
Yes, foods.
Food
Yes,
company, yeah.
yes. And we have with us Tom Bugnitz, who is our advocate for manufacturing here, and we have Ali Recek. She is the director of key initiatives at Manufacturers Edge, along with Tom, and they are a great team. We love you guys. We've had you come in several times, and so it's always a pleasure to have you here. And Kelly Strong is with us. She is the founder of Blue Moon Goodness. So, Tom, take it away.
Well, I was thinking during the break, we were talking about my mother baking, and so two things happened during the break. One is we were talking about, your mother trying to make new things,
Right.
and maybe not being successful. My mother experimenting, and I realized that one of my rules is if you make it and put it in front of me to eat, it's good. Okay. If you go to the trouble of making it and I don't have to do anything, it's going to taste good. Period. End of story. And,
Well, you'll be the first person to eat anything I've ever made then.
and I
Well,
start.
you love all my products.
Well, and that's exactly right. And so, in one of the things that we started talking about was, you said, you show your love by doing things for people that feeds into your talents.
Yes.
And and a lot of our conversation at the break was about the way food is part of our family memory.
Right.
Whether it's particular meals or whether it's our mother trying to do things or our father barbecuing, whatever.
Rituals.
They're rituals.
Yeah.
And so
the time to come together.
so Kelly, I was kind of thinking, and I was sensing a little bit that, you're not putting soup in a jar. You're trying to do what you said before. You're trying to show a particular talent. You're trying to help people have some of those rituals. And I don't want to get too deep into that, but I'm just curious whether I'm interpreting correctly.
You're spot on. Actually, that's actually one of the silver linings of all the hard work is that I get notes from people and they tell me that how much they enjoy my food. In fact, even when we won the award, you were giving me that award, and afterwards we were just chatting. Someone came up, I don't know if you heard this, and he said, "Here's my card. I'm from Colorado Springs. I've been a vegan for 30 years, and I love your soups."
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was standing about 4 feet away when it happened.
how nice is that?
Yeah.
I mean, not to diminish, the helicopter blades and all the other crazy stuff that people were manufacturing that won awards. But I'll bet you, they didn't get that warm fuzzy.
Well, there's another thing I would ask you about based on that, and Alex knows this. We talked about it Tuesday. Is that my first job was at an auto manufacturing plant, American Motors in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and when I go out on the street, I go, "We made that car, brand new car," and I knew that car had come off the line while I was in that plant.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know which one it was, but there was a real sense of pride's not the right word, accomplishment isn't the right word, because I was a little cog in a big wheel, no pun intended.
But you got puffed up a little.
But I did. I felt like I was contributing
Pride.
to something. And you talk to somebody about their car, and they go, "I love this car." Now, in American Motors, believe it or not, was actually making pretty good cars in those days, in a lot of ways. And so it felt like you had an impact on somebody's life. And I'm wondering, you're walking through stores and you see that, and that didn't exist how long ago?
We're only on the shelves in stores in the last 3 years.
That's what I thought. I thought it was less than 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, as speaking to somebody who would be thinking about, I've got an idea, should I go do it? What's it feel like for you when you're in a store? You got to go buy groceries. Okay, you're not making
I
everything.
do, and I always check out the soup aisle. Shocking development, but I always check out the soup aisle, and I love to see people looking at it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Unprovoked strangers. Like, oh, they care. They're having a look at it. It caught their eye, and then that makes me feel really good. And when people call me or send emails or post a note or something, that encourages me to keep on, because as you know, starting a business is a tough
Very hard.
tough road. So that is a nice thing to have as an incentive.
Do you ever talk to them when they're looking at this soup? Come on.
Okay,
Fess
I do,
up.
I do. Okay, and I might offer to sign their jar or something,
That's fun.
If you don't
I want
promote
to shop
yourself,
where you go. I want my jars signed. Hey,
We'll watch you watching people.
Right. Well, you know, it's also really nice. We because it's food, we can do demos. We sometimes, you know,
And
we
Whole
give-
Foods kind of thing.
Yeah,
really.
like that, and a lot of stores, or Safeway even has invited us in a few times. And actually, what Safeway did recently is they brought they had the butcher. We coordinated with the butcher, even though they're vegan soups.
Okay, got it.
We coordinated with the butcher, and he cooked up some Redbird chicken, which is a local chicken, and some other sausages. We used Boulder Italian sausage at that time, and we put it like the tomato fennel with the Italian sausage is like unbelievable. It's so good. And the, you know, like some chicken in the Moroccan vegetable soup, or a little cheese sprinkled on it on the chili. There's things you can do, and people come to the store and they taste it, and we talk about it. But we had a chance to do that at Safeway, and that was really nice. And also, people tell us, we love it when people tell us what they did with our soup.
Oh, interesting.
We poured that Moroccan vegetable soup over rice, so we became a big part of their meal. You know,
Oh,
and
see.
I want to jump in here because I'm a label reader. I have been
Okay.
for 25 years, and I love looking down through your nutrition facts and the fact that in your green chili, everything is in balance. There's like there's enough protein in there to actually sustain you. On this particular product, there's pretty low in salt, very little sugar.
Mhm.
But what I really love about your label, other than your wonderful logo and the bee, is that you give people an idea of other ways to use your product. Blue Moon Goodness vegan green
chili.
read girl. Green chili soup is organic and gluten-free and GMO-free. It's made with simple organic ingredients, and we're proud to get our chilies from Pueblo, Colorado. We suggest to heat and serve your chili. Pour it over eggs, tamales, or rice. It's great with some chicken, pork, or even melted cheese on top. I mean, as if I didn't know how to use green chili, but now this gives me some other ideas as well.
It's a
So
meal.
I never thought
Thank
about
you.
eggs, actually.
Oh, huevos.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know why I didn't go there, but
yeah.
that's what I'm having this
So
evening.
it's very, very helpful to
Yeah.
to kind of have you suggest ways
Sure.
to use
Well, you
the
know, these
wonderful
are
soup.
foods I've been making for my family for a long time.
Yeah.
So I like the Moroccan vegetable soup. In Morocco, we would eat that with fresh dates and maybe squeeze a little bit of lemon, and that's a very traditional, very typical soup. And my kids like to poach an egg in it,
I'll bet.
actually,
I'll
in the
bet that would
Moroccan
be
vegetable soup.
amazing.
But it is like you said, and that was by design. The protein, because I have one daughter who is a vegetarian. I personally am not, and I like to make food that is complete for her. You know,
Right.
as far as protein and you know
Right.
vegetables and everything.
Right.
But we'll talk about, you're making a product, but what Ali was just pointing out in a very subtle way was you're taking your product and you're trying to give somebody an experience with it.
That's right.
It's not just go buy my soup and warm it up. It's, hey, by the way,
Yeah,
and I
try it
think
this
that's again what we see with a lot of what I keep calling niche marketing, but outdoor and brew is, hey, here's how to go beyond what you just picked up off the shelf. Here's how I can help you have an experience. And I think again that kind of drives some of what people in your part of the industry are doing.
Well, do you remember now? Probably not your mother because she was a from scratch person, but a lot of people in their homes kept a can of mushroom soup.
Oh my God!
Oh,
Are
wait.
you
You can do
kidding me?
anything with it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You could. That was the duct tape of food.
Good job, Tom. Exactly right. Over
Okay.
chicken, over pork chops,
Yep.
over rice.
With the green bean casserole.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, growing up
Good
in a
one.
Catholic family, that was it. That was that
Right.
8 kids. There you
So this sort of takes that concept.
Yeah.
You can do things with you don't need to have just that. There are a lot of other ways to start a meal with these kinds of products.
And camping.
And
Oh my goodness.
I've
Amazing
actually-
for camping.
I've had a lot of people come up when we're doing demos and tell me that they take it camping. It's easy.
I'll take a left turn, Allie, based on your label reading.
Mm-hmm.
I don't drink a lot. Like I don't drink orange juice because of high sugar.
Right.
And, I try to watch sugar in that. And we had a friend visiting us who said, "Do you want some orange juice?" And I said, "No." I said, "How come you don't like orange juice?" I said, "Well, if you look at a can of soda and the same amount of orange juice, you're getting more sugar." She was, "Oh, well, this is," and I don't want to say the product name, "this is 50% less sugar." I said, "Well, I still, And the curse of people like me is you go, how do you get sugar out of orange juice? Huh. And so I was laying in bed and I was thinking, well, one thing is there might be like, when you're making wine or beer, that's things eating the sugar and
Yeah.
so maybe there's some enzyme they put in orange juice. And I thought, one simple way is, take a gallon of orange juice and put a gallon of water in it. Now you got 50% less sugar. And so the next morning I walk out and I asked our friend, I said, "Did you ever think about how you get 50% less sugar?" She said, "Not really." I said, "I was thinking about it." I said, "One obvious way is you just cut it with water, but that can't be it." I'm wondering. So I look it up. Guess what they do?
First ingredient, water.
Yeah.
First filtered water,
That's
at
right.
least. But and so the bottom line was you're now paying twice as much for your orange juice.
Right.
Buy this stuff, put it with water yourself, make it 25% sugar.
Exactly.
And where I was going with that, I do have a point sometimes, was the idea of that I think is true in Colorado manufacturers more than I've seen in traditional big manufacturers. Is having a philosophy about the quality of what you're putting in it, what it's going to be. I don't want to
Integrity.
I was going to say I don't want to say honesty. Maybe there's an integrity to it
Yeah.
that I think you have to have in this particular area as well. When you're talking about all natural, you're talking about gluten free, that people will trust that you did good stuff.
Well, that's how I shop, and so that's how I want to feed myself and my family. So I think that I'm not that unusual, actually. So
I'm
Well-
with you.
Well, I think it might be more unusual than you think because I watch people in stores sometimes, and sitting around this table, we're very lucky people in many ways. I mean, we live better lives than 99% of the human race all over of all time.
that's a fact.
Okay, and we can go in and we can afford to do what you just said. We're going to watch the ingredients. We're lucky that way. I think
We have a choice.
we have a choice,
Right.
and I think one of the things that I interpret a lot of times when I'm looking at things like this is, if somebody can really get to that point, you've made the choice for them to be healthy, to be have some integrity in the kind of food they're eating.
Well, this is actually another nice opportunity for me to say something else about what I feel is my mission is to make this kind of healthy, real food at a price point that is attainable, that makes it attainable for a lot of people.
A technical question.
And that's really challenging.
Well,
Yeah.
beyond the cost equation of it, how much control do you have in the store about how they end up pricing things? Because I know, I've seen a lot of research. You put gluten free on something, I mean, that never had gluten, and all of a sudden you can charge more and sales go up, as you found
With that granola.
when you actually went gluten free. But I'm seeing products that we know were never had any gluten in them anyway are now gluten free. And that's allowing the stores and the distributors to charge a premium. I'm wondering, in this business, how much of that is at the store's discretion to say, this is good stuff, we're going to crank it up a little bit?
Well, the store doesn't really do that so much. There, it's pretty much with the grocery chains, just between wholesale and distribution and retail. It's a formula that doesn't
Okay.
vary too much. Some chains maybe have a little bit of a higher margin when they want a higher margin, but my price doesn't really change too much. I mean, it might change on volume or proximity,
Okay.
geography, but for logistics, transportation. But it's pretty much a formula, and the problem is the cost of the ingredients does vary, so you have to build that in. But as far as the gluten-free, I mean, I think that is possible, that perhaps people are more tolerant to pay a higher price. They have a higher tolerance for the price when they know it's all natural, organic, and gluten-free. And again, back to the to the demos, when people are coming to taste our food and they walk past and they're like, "Oh, I'm gluten-free, so I don't take any chances." They won't try anything. So it's that does matter
Yeah.
to people. They're willing to take a chance. And
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I'm curious where you're going with all this. We got 300 stores. You got how many different soups you got now?
Well, we have the 3 soups, and we're working on 2
Two
more,
more.
and I'm really excited about them. I wish I could share them
Don't share.
with you now, but what I will do is bring samples to you right away because you'll get the word out. I can tell.
Fantastic.
But we would like to expand our number of products, and we'd like to expand our geographical reach
Okay.
as well. We just signed with a new distributor, which is going to give us a lot more opportunity in that regard. We just signed with Kihi. I don't know if anybody is familiar. They're a very large distributor of natural foods in the United States, and they cast a really far net. So, and we think of going to the Northwest and the Northeast, colder climates, because people eat more soup.
Soupier.
Exactly. Although someone recently said to me, soup is like ice cream. Was confused, and she said, I eat them both all year round. But
Well, kind of a question about that kind of plan, and it's a sideways question. What do you do? What's your business? Are you a soup maker? Are you a natural foods? You're chasing natural foods? Or what do you do? What do you actually think of yourself as doing?
Well, you've helped me to define myself a little bit.
As a manufacturer.
Yes, as a manufacturer, which I'm so appreciative of. It really, was good for my ego. And but I think that there's a big, I'm a manufacturer, and there's a huge marketing component that's enormous, and those are probably the 2 things. But in addition, I think that I have the opportunity to be a more creative person than just a manufacturer and a marketing person. I get to create these products, which, like I said before, that's really fun. That part's really fun, and all of my friends and family enjoy that part.
And how do you decide the next product?
Well, partly because I've made a commitment in a way to producing these 2-year to producing shelf-stable products, and I in a way have a commitment to this process of hot packing, and for the soups and preserving food that way. So creatively, then that narrows the fields. I'm not going to be using probably a lot of cheese or meat,
Right.
because those are more challenging to make shelf stable.
How do you become in this industry both? How do you stand out? Because like I go to Whole Foods, right, and I want to buy a Kind bar or a Laura bar from Colorado, and you stand in front of a wall. And it's like,
Yes.
I remember reading something that some head of a monastery was railing about how many different cereals do we need in the world, and you've got Amy's out there doing all their stuff, and you've got a lot of, on the one hand, how many more soups do we need? Okay, but the real question is, how do you then become something that's distinguishable in this kind of business?
Well, actually, I think the statistics are that soup sales are actually down some for 2 or 3 years in a row, and for certain segments of the soup aisle. Because as my guy, my new distributor said, that nothing exciting has really happened in the soup aisle in
That's
a
a
long
funny
time.
line.
And I was
Has anything exciting ever happened in soup?
Well, it is now. I said party in the soup aisle. I
That's
wasn't
right.
kidding. I'll meet you there.
There we go. There we go.
But people like to see their food, and that's different. But you said something else that was interesting about finding products that are from Colorado. And in Colorado, we're really lucky. We have the Colorado Department of Agriculture is very supportive of food businesses, and from all the way from farmers and who supports them, and to for the growers and producers, to the people who are sourcing ingredients, and they are very, very supportive. And so you'll see on our products the Colorado Proud insignia or logo, and we really appreciate their help. And they give us some guidance, actually, and opportunities, which I've learned so much that helped, maybe took not few steps out, but made a few of those steps a little easier for me.
Alex, trick question. If I say Gilroy, California, what do you say?
California Gilroy?
Okay, Allie?
Garlic.
Garlic.
Oh,
Garlic capital of the world.
that one I
Yes.
don't. I know Blue Moon.
Garlic. What if you
You
say
say-
Pueblo, Colorado?
Chili.
Right.
Yes.
That's right.
So my point is that I was in Gilroy
Yeah.
a little while ago, and I was at a checkout of a fairly good food store. You know, it wasn't a chain, it wasn't a Safeway, and it had a number of stores around California, but it's a pretty I would call it a more high-end food store. And I was at the checkout, and standing at the checkout, I counted 18 Colorado products that I could see from where I was standing.
Yay.
It was
That's exciting.
it was amazing.
Exciting, being in the middle of the green belt of California.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really interesting because and it was the things that you wouldn't necessarily think, like, okay, so here's Justin's peanut butter bars, and there's the Laura bars, and there's Fat Tire beer, and I'm trying to think of all of the ones I saw there. And there wasn't all that kind of stuff. There was some normal food products.
Real food.
Real food is
Real
what I was
food.
going to say. That
is real food
that
for
I
you.
could
It
see
is
from-
real.
Yeah, for Alex, hard-boiled eggs, as you said before.
Yeah, pre-hard-boiled eggs. I'm telling
Pre-hard-boiled eggs.
they sell because there's a market for
So
them.
so that pre-hard-boiled eggs,
You're my new project.
does that hurt the chicken to hard-boil that egg?
Oh,
Before?
Wait, we're not in Portland.
Okay. But I think what you said is true. I think that food manufacturers, outdoor manufacturers, whatever, there's getting to be a national presence of the Colorado brands as Colorado brands, not just as what they are.
There's something I would have to say that exporting a product that says Colorado Proud on it actually has that's a real attribute for our product, because there's something cool about being from Colorado. You know, we all know that.
Yeah.
Well,
I
and
mean,
I got to tell you, looking at canned soups and looking at jarred soups, that already tells me the quality is there, because you're willing to show. You're like, sort of
That's right.
showing your skin.
It's very much like that. It
Yeah.
has to
I
look.
love it. It's a very smart idea, and maybe the reason why the soup industry is going down is because they've forgotten that people want to see what they're going to put in their mouths.
Yeah. That's
into
that's
their
a really
gullet.
good point. Oh, I love that. Thank you.
well, and when I feel like when you do open up a can of soup, it doesn't look all that appetizing at first, right? You got to slide it out and then
Yeah.
put the
Yeah.
pot on the burner.
This
You
know what you're
looks
getting.
appetizing.
Yep.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Pop it open.
Yeah.
Good to go.
Good to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Poach an egg in it.
Well
Exactly.
done, Kelly.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Well, and
I'm a new, not new, but tried it before. But I am a solid client of yours.
Awesome.
Yes.
well, and one of the things that I think that happens in Colorado is we do know a lot of the people that are making our products,
Yeah.
and you realize that it's not some big corporation somewhere. It's people that are down the street in Colorado Springs or in Boulder or whatever, and there's a Colorado is different. I mean, I'm not selling the state. I'm just saying I travel around. There's a different attitude, a different way people do things, a different way they approach things. We're basically ground zero for this kind of food now. And there's a reason for that, and it's because of where we live and who we live here with. So, Kelly, thanks. This has been quite fun for me, just kind of rambling around all these different subjects. So
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed it.
I really did. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Thank you for being
Can't wait to
here.
see your new 2 soups.
Yes.
2 new soups.
Keep an eye out for those in stores. Again, that's Blue Moon Goodness. Keep an eye out for that. It's got a little B on the jar for you. And check this out and more at cobrt.com/radio. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.